Hello, this is Lilian, welcoming you to the 1860th edition of the Enfield Talking Newspaper, Dateline the 21st of June 2012. The readers this week are Joan, Beverly, Rod and myself, Lilian, with Cassandra and Colin on the controls. Local stories include 40 Hall shines after £4 million revamp. Councillor proves a good neighbour to Residents Association. Thousands sign petition against Sunday charges. And Thames Water says thanks as hosepipe ban ends. And I have a special news item to read. The Macular Disease Society is holding Vision Zone, an exhibition of equipment, resources and services for visually impaired people on Thursday the 19th of July from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Congress Centre, 28 Great Russell Street, London, WC1 B 3LS for sugar. For more information, call 0845 241 2041. That is 0845 241 2041. And now over to Joan, who will read the first item of local news.
40 Hall will reopen its doors to the public for the first time in 2 years next weekend, following a £4 million revamp. People from across the borough are being invited to take part in the grand opening of the restored historic home. 40 Hall was built in 1632 by cloth merchant Sir Nicholas Rainton and was owned by the Parker Bowles family during the 20th century. Members of the press were given a sneak peek inside the sumptuous rooms of the newly refurbished home last Friday, and with Enfield Council behind the extensive refurbishment, officers and councillors alike were keen to lavish praise on the home, often referring to it as the jewel in Enfield's crown. The painstaking work, which has been funded jointly by the Council and the Heritage Lottery Fund, has seen many of the original 17th and 18th century interiors restored. The central staircase returned to its original Jacobean setting, and a lift, approved by English Heritage, installed into the Grade 1 listed property to give wheelchair access. According to Zoe Prosser, Senior Arts and Interpretation Officer for Enfield Council, 40 Hall is not intended to be a museum. It's a heritage home, she said, but the majority of things here you can open up and touch and look inside. There is dressing up and there are children's packs with things for them to do, and that is really exciting. What's fascinating is that Sir Nicholas was part of this rising merchant class, and he bought a home overlooking Elsinge Palace, which used to be owned by Henry VIII. In only a few years' time, they chopped off the head of the King of England, so 40 Hall represents things that were coming in the wider world. Council leader Doug Taylor said, 40 Hall is a major resource. Children can use it. Colleges can use it. It is free for members of the public, and we want to encourage people from all over Enfield to come and enjoy it.
More than 7,000 people have signed a petition calling for Sunday parking charges introduced in Enfield town to be scrapped. The petition, started by Conservative councillors in January when the charges were introduced, will be formally presented at a council meeting next month and is likely to force a debate on whether to scrap the measures. Traders, churches, MPs and motorists have all condemned the charges, which are the same as weekday prices, except for a special £1 rate for 2 hours parking. However, Enfield Council says it will bring in £100,000 a year. Businesses in Enfield town told the Enfield Independent in February they had lost 20% of their Sunday trade since the changes and accused the council of committing political suicide. Councillor Terry Neville, Conservative spokesman for Environment, said it was the largest petition he had seen in his 26 years in Enfield, and even more signatures had come in since the last count. His colleague, Enfield Town Councillor Joan said it is quite apparent that since the introduction of Sunday parking charges, footfall has fallen in Enfield Town. It is not rocket science that people would prefer to visit a shopping centre where you can park for free on Sundays rather than one where you pay, especially in the economic climate. The petition's 7,000 signatures illustrate the strength of feeling by residents and traders over this badly thought-out policy. But the man in charge of parking, Councillor Chris Bond, said no changes would be made until a wider review of parking across the borough was completed at the end of the year. He said, "I've always said we'll put it in and leave it for a while to see what happens, and we're not going to change our mind, but we're reviewing the whole parking system, so when we do start that, then maybe we can look at it. We want to do it properly, and we've already said we're not going to put the prices up for 2 years. We are due to review it sometime later this year." The petition, to be presented on July 4th, also calls for 20 minutes of free parking to be introduced in bays in Enfield Town to allow shoppers to pay quick visits to small businesses. Conservative councillors are labelling next month's meeting a protest meeting and have called for motorists and traders to come to show their anger.
Thames Water's hosepipe ban was lifted last week after an extraordinary amount of rain eased the water shortage affecting the south and east of England. By June 13th, the day the ban was lifted, 169% of the month's total average rainfall had already fallen across the London and Thames Valley region. Before this, April was a complete washout, with 262% of the long-term average rainfall, followed by a solid 76% in May. Dubbed the wettest drought in history, the heavens opened within hours of the ban being imposed and stayed open for almost the full duration of the 10-week ban that affected the company's 8.8 million customers. But Richard Aylard, the company's Director of Sustainability, said a hosepipe ban was the only option and that it was the right and responsible thing to do in the circumstances. He said, "In early April, things looked very different than they do now. We had the 2 driest years on record and we had no idea how long it was going to stay dry. Well, while we prepared for worst, bringing in restrictions to save water to ensure there would be enough if the dry spell continued, the topsy-turvy British weather had other ideas. The hosepipe ban showed its worth during the hot spell in May, when water demand would normally be expected to be at its highest. But due to the cooperative behaviour of customers, a massive 100 million litres of water a day was saved." Mr. Aylard said, "We would like to say a heartfelt thank you to all our customers for complying with the restrictions and for their ongoing efforts to use water wisely. They really are much appreciated." But with the possibility of a third dry winter in a row this year, the firm urged its customers to continue to use water wisely, reiterating its offer of free water-saving devices that can be ordered on the company website. If the winter rain does not come and fill the aquifers, which are deep underground and still parched from the long dry period, it could mean more restrictions next year. Hosepipe bans were imposed on the 5th of April by Thames Water and 6 other firms, following the driest 2-year period on record, and were lifted by Thames Water, Southern Water and Anglian Water on Thursday. Mr. Aylard added, "We are really pleased we can now lift the ban, but with groundwater levels still low and the possibility of a third successive dry winter, we still need to be careful. We don't need a ban, but we do need to ask everyone to keep on using water wisely. So, if you've bought a water butt this year, please keep using it. If you've started taking shorter showers, please keep it up. And again, thanks for your help and understanding." Thames Water confirmed earlier this month that it had its 6th successive annual leak-cutting target. This means that in addition to the 100 million litres of water a day saved by customers adhering to the ban, the company is also saving an additional 60 million litres a day, representing 6% of the 2.6 billion litres of water it supplies each day.
An Enfield councillor has stepped in to help Haringey residents with a hotly contested planning decision. Achilles Georgiou, a Bowes Road ward councillor and deputy leader of Enfield Council, has been offering advice to members of the Bounds Green and District Residents Association, an area which borders his constituency. The Residents Association sought Mr. Georgiou's help after Haringey Council had given the green light to a project it fears will have massive ramifications on the whole area. A house in Maidstone Road, New Southgate, was demolished, and a development of 9 flats or units is to be built in its place. Opponents say the site is too small to sustain so many residents. John Waller, a member of the Residents Association Committee, said, "The new building planned for this site is completely charmless and a gross overdevelopment." Mr. Georgiou told opponents their only real recourse was a costly and time-consuming judicial review, and he advised, find out about planning applications and make sure people know your objections to them straight away. A spokeswoman from Haringey Council said only 4 of the 9 units would be allowed cars, and that off-street parking was included in the development.
The first official Olympic opening ceremony was held in London in 1908. In contrast to the colourful extravaganzas of modern times, it was a simple, modest parade. Under Olympic protocol, established in 1906, participating nations are required to walk around the stadium behind their national flags. In 1908, Britain's failure to grant Ireland independence prompted the Irish team to boycott the Games and is said to have motivated the American team not to follow convention and dip its flag to King Edward VII. Ceremonies have steadily grown in importance since then and are seen as an important way to set a positive tone for the Games and promote the host nation to the world. But one of the most memorable and sinister opening ceremonies was the result of a potent mix of sport, politics, and nationalism. In Berlin in 1936, Hitler used the Games to promote Germany's might. The Führer and his entourage accompanied Olympic officials into a stadium adorned with swastikas to the sound of 3,000 Germans singing their national anthem. Athletes were supposed to give a Nazi salute as they passed by the German leader, but its similarity to the traditional Olympic salute, which involves holding the right arm and hand aloft, caused some confusion. The French and Canadian teams gave a salute, which was interpreted as honouring Hitler, while the British and American teams kept their arms by their side. The Berlin Games saw the first Olympic torch relay, when the flame was carried from Greece by 3,000 people over 12 days. The opening ceremony of the Barcelona Games in 1992 is one of the most memorable in modern times for the spectacular way the Olympic flame in the stadium was lit. With the stadium plunged into almost darkness, Spanish basketball star Juan Antonio San ran with the torch, passed it to Paralympic archer Antonio Rebolo. He lit one of his arrows and fired it across the stadium to light a large flame in the Olympic cauldron. The opening ceremony for the Beijing Olympics in 2008, which focused on ancient Chinese culture, was dubbed the greatest ever by some observers. The lighting of the flame was performed by gymnast Li Ning. Lasting more than 4 hours, the ceremony featured 15,000 performers and cost the equivalent of £65 million. Now, each Olympic ceremony is required to follow a strict set of protocols in exact order, which is: the head of state enters the Olympic stadium. The national anthem of the host country is played. Competitors parade around the stadium. A dove symbolizing peace is released. The president of the Olympic organized committees gives a speech. The International Olympic Committee president gives a speech. The games are declared open by the host country head of state. The Olympic flag is raised as the Olympic anthem is played. Athletes and officials give an oath. The game's flame is lit.
Inspired by Shakespeare's The Tempest, a concept entitled Our Isles of Wonder has been created to promote the image of our green and pleasant land, evoked by another iconic writer, William Blake, in his poem, And Did Those Feet in Ancient Time. Plans unveiled last week show the Olympic Stadium will be transformed into a rural idyll, complete with live farm animals. The estimated 1 billion people who are expected to watch the ceremony will see a village cricket match and family picnics alongside a menagerie of animals including 12 horses and 70 sheep. Danny Boyle, the director of films including Slumdog Millionaire and Trainspotting, was chosen as artistic director and handed the responsibility of following the extravagance of Beijing 4 years ago. He said, Our Isles of Wonder salutes and celebrates the exuberant creativity of the British genius in an opening ceremony that we hope will be as unpredictable and inventive as the British people. The ceremony as an attempt to capture a picture of ourselves as a nation, where we have come from and where we want to be. The best part of telling that story has been working with our 10,000 volunteers. I've been astounded by the selfless dedication of the volunteers. They are the purest embodiment of the Olympic spirit and represent the best of who we are as a nation. At a cost of £27 million, the set will be one of the biggest ever attempted at an Olympics opening ceremony and will use 1,100 automated lamps, 1,000 conventional lamps, 500 LED fixtures and 32 follow spots. This will be accompanied by a 1 million-watt sound system using more than 500 speakers and 50 tons of associated audio equipment. The largest harmonically tuned bell in the world will be rung to mark the ceremony's opening. It weighs 23 tons, is 2 meters tall and 3 meters wide. So that's going to make a lot of noise. Performing at the opening ceremony will be 900 school children from the 6 Olympic host boroughs, including Waltham Forest. But it's not just young people who have been given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Rachel Wedderburn, 46, of Melford Road, Walthamstow, will also take part and describe being chosen as a great honour. I hope she's not near that bell anyway. I can't help it.
A leader of a campaign against a rejected bid to build a 250-home housing development in Cat Hill this week criticised revised plans published by the developer. Despite reducing the number of homes on the former Middlesex University campus to 232 and lowering the tallest buildings from 6 to 4 stories, Kim Coleman said plans submitted by housing developer L&Q are still too dense and too high. L&Q was forced to go back to the drawing board after Enfield Council's planning committee rejected its first bid to build on the site near the border of Enfield and Barnet. That followed months of fierce opposition from members of the Campaign for Cat Hill. Opponents argued that the development was too large, would have a negative impact on trees and wildlife, and was out of keeping with the look of the area. Hundreds of residents attended the special planning meeting in March when the committee rejected the proposal unanimously. L&Q said it had taken the committee's comments on board when drafting the new plans, which went on display at Ashmole Academy and Cecil Road Southgate on Saturday and Monday. As well as reducing the size of the development, the Housing Association said it had moved works away from a pond believed to contain great crested newts and would commission further ecological studies in order to enhance conservation methods. However, Ms. Coleman said that the changes did not go far enough. She said, "Obviously they have taken on board our comments, but I still think it is too dense and 4 stories is still too high." An L&Q spokesman said it would review feedback from residents and other parties. When this process is complete, we will be looking to submit a new application to Enfield Council, he said.
A female rugby star from Edmonton says receiving an MBE in the Queen's birthday honours was an incredible moment. Margaret Alfonsi, 28, who plays rugby union for Saracens and is vice-captain of the England squad, received the honour for services to rugby. Ms. Alfonsi made her debut for England in 2003 and has won 63 caps, played in 2 World Cups and helped her country to a record 7th consecutive Six Nations title earlier this year. She said, "I'm so pleased to have been given this great honour. The remarkable work and achievements of the England women's squad over the past 6 years has been fantastic, and to have been a part of that has been incredible. I certainly have to thank all the people who have supported me along the way." Ms. Alfonsi works with London's young talented rugby players and is an ambassador for the bid to host the 2015 World Cup in England. She also does work for the Rugby Football Union's Injured Players Foundation and is a patron of Sporting Equals, promoting ethnic diversity across sport. She also does charity rugby training in Swaziland and in a project to tackle violence. She added, "There are a lot of exciting things coming up for me, and I am really looking forward to the start of the new season. For now, though, this is an incredible moment, and I am really looking forward to going to Buckingham Palace and receiving my MBE." Ms. Alfonsi said, "I will be taking my mum to the palace, and I can't lie, she is very excited. So much so, she has already bought her hat and dress." Others in the borough who were awarded honours include Gladys Dixon, who was made an MBE for services to Parliament and communities in London and Ghana, and Leslie Towell, the chairman of the 15th St Pancras Scout Group, who receives the British Empire Medal for services to young people.
A Clinton card store in Southgate will close by the end of the week, administrators have confirmed. The store in Chayside is one of 165 across the country to close by Thursday, said the company's administrators, Zolfo Cooper. Birthdays in Enfield Town's Palace Garden Shopping Centre also faces the axe. The future of Enfield Town's Clinton cards still hangs in the balance, but its closure seems imminent after it was not included in a rescue buyout earlier this month. The sale of 397 Clinton cards stores to a subsidiary of the American Greetings Corporation, looks to have saved 4,500 jobs. Of the remaining 350 stores across the UK, administrators have confirmed the closure of 165 branches, all of which will be shut down in the coming months. Unless a last-minute buyer steps forward with an offer for the remaining stores, including those in Enfield, they are also expected to be shut down sometime during the summer.
A primary school due to open in September is making room for extra pupils in response to huge demand. Kingfisher Hall Primary Academy, which will initially open in its sister school, Cuckoo Hall Academy, in Cuckoo Hall Lane, Enfield Highway, will now cater for 60 reception-age pupils instead of 30. The school will move to a new building in The Ride on land leased from the College of Haringey, Enfield and North East London in September next year, subject to planning permission. The school will eventually cater for 480 pupils by 2018. Principal of the Cuckoo Hall Academy's Trust, Patricia Salter, said she was delighted the school was able to expand in response to demand by parents. She said, "Our experience puts us in a strong position to provide excellent opportunities for primary-aged children, and we are confident Kingfisher Hall will continue the high standards and fantastic results of our other primary academies." The issue of demand for primary school places has erupted in recent weeks as parents at Walker Primary School in Waterfall Road, Southgate, pledged to fight Enfield Council's plan to add an extra reception class. Last week, the Enfield Independent reported how some lessons were being held in the corridors and the stockroom.
We have reached the end of side 1 for this tape. Please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over and start side 2.